China is increasing its Antarctic footprint. This is Beijing's fifth station in the southern polar region.
China has shown a lot of interest in the South Pole. You know who else is very interested in Antarctica? Joe Rogan. He has done several podcasts with leading experts on the matter, shedding light on a world of secrets under the South Pole. Today, we'll walk you through the key highlights of several Joe Rogan Experience podcasts on what the Chinese scientists have discovered in Antarctica and why it should terrify the whole world.
An expert in Chinese politics says a new tussle for Antarctic exploration has begun.
From enormous geometric structures buried deep under the ice to eerie satellite anomalies that hint at artificial design, the southernmost continent has become ground zero for a growing storm of curiosity, speculation, and silence. Governments remain tight-lipped, while new discoveries only deepen the mystery. Now, with Chinese scientists reporting strange findings, Antarctica is once again in the spotlight for platforms like the Joe Rogan Experience. Let's get started. China's meteoric rise in Antarctic exploration. Most would be surprised to know that as recently as 1980, the People's Republic of China had no official presence on the southern continent. It lacked ice-capable ships, overland transport vehicles, trained polar scientists, and even basic infrastructure for cold weather operations. Yet, by 1985, China had defied expectations and established a fully operational, year-round research station, Great Wall Station, within just 5 years of beginning its polar campaign. This meteoric rise was sparked by a pivotal diplomatic gesture. In 1980, Australia, a veteran of Antarctic science under the Antarctic Treaty System, invited Chinese researchers to join one of its expeditions. At that time, China had only recently emerged from the Cultural Revolution, and its scientific institutions were still recovering from a decade of disruption. But Beijing's leadership recognized the strategic significance of Antarctica, and so do other great powers on our planet. Antarctica is not just a frontier of climate and geological research. It is also a geopolitical chessboard on which future influence would be measured. China knows that, and so do its competitors. China launched its first independently organized Antarctic expedition in November 1984. The team, consisting of 591 members, departed Shanghai aboard the Shangyanghong 10, a converted cargo vessel that had been retrofitted with limited scientific equipment and reinforced hull plating. The ship traversed more than 18,500 nautical miles before reaching King George Island in the South Shetland archipelago. There, under brutal wind and snow conditions, the team began construction of what would become the Great Wall Station, at 62 degrees, 13 minutes south, and 58 degrees, 58 minutes west. Remarkably, the station was completed in just 40 days, by February 20th, 1985, and became China's first permanent research base in Antarctica. Initially housing 25 researchers and capable of supporting up to 60 during the summer season, Great Wall Station focused on atmospheric sciences, glaciology, oceanography, and biodiversity studies. Its location near other countries' facilities, such as Chile's Frey Station and Russia's Bellingshausen Station, positioned China within a cluster of international scientific activity and allowed for early cooperation and data sharing, all under the governance of the 1959 Antarctic Treaty. China did not stop there. Within 4 years, it had taken another massive step. In 1989, it inaugurated Zhongshan Station at 69 degrees, 22 minutes south, and 76 degrees, 22 minutes east, in East Antarctica's Lasman Hills region, over 3,000 kilometers from its first outpost. This station was significantly more remote and presented formidable logistical challenges, as it required traversing vast ice shelves and harsh terrain without the support of nearby international facilities. Zhongshan Station served a dual purpose. First, it became China's main portal into East Antarctica, offering access to inland ice dome regions critical for paleoclimate research through deep ice core drilling. Second, it was a strategic hub from which China could launch inland expeditions into the unclaimed and least accessible parts of Antarctica, areas such as Dome A, where the polar ice sheet reaches its thickest and most stable configuration. China's ambitions continued to accelerate. In 2009, the Chinese National Antarctic Research Expedition, or CHINARE, established a third station, Kunlun Station, located at Dome A, which sits at 80 degrees, 25 minutes south and 77 degrees, 6 minutes east. This is the highest point on the East Antarctic ice sheet, at an elevation of over 4,000 meters. This inland facility, operational only during the summer months due to its extreme cold, with temperatures plummeting to minus 80 degrees Celsius, is uniquely positioned for deep ice core drilling and atmospheric observations. Here, Chinese scientists began the Dome A Ice Core project, aimed at extracting climate data potentially over 1 million years old. The Chinese Academy of Sciences emphasized that this research could yield breakthroughs in understanding Earth's glacial cycles and the effects of greenhouse gases over geological timescales. In 2014, China expanded its operations further by constructing Taishan Station, located between Zhongshan and Kunlun. Taishan serves as a midway support base for overland convoys and a backup station for emergencies. Although smaller in size, it can house 20 scientists and offers high-altitude training and technical support for inland logistics teams. By this time, China had also launched the state-of-the-art Shuilong 2, an advanced icebreaker built in Finland and co-designed by China's Polar Research Institute. Unlike the older Shuilong, originally a Ukrainian-built cargo ship converted into an icebreaker, the new vessel features a double-acting hull design capable of breaking through 1.5 meters of ice while sailing either forward or backward. This made China the first country to operate an icebreaker of this class built from scratch. Fast forward to today, and China operates 4 Antarctic research stations: Great Wall, Zhongshan, Kunlun, and Taishan, with a 5th permanent year-round station currently under construction in the Ross Sea region near Inexpressible Island, where ground was broken in 2018. Once completed, this Ross Sea base will make China only the 3rd country, after the United States and Russia, to maintain 5 or more permanent facilities on the continent. China has also built semi-permanent aviation infrastructure, including ice runways to accommodate long-haul aircraft like the Ilyushin IL-76, which can deliver up to 40 tons of cargo to the interior. These logistical expansions have allowed Chinese scientists to conduct long-duration inland missions, perform unmanned aerial surveys, deploy ground-penetrating radar systems, and establish automated weather stations across the ice desert. All of this within just 45 years. But is it only scientific curiosity that has brought China here? Science meets geopolitics. When China officially joined the Antarctic Treaty System in June 1983, it was a calculated geopolitical maneuver. The Antarctic Treaty, originally signed in 1959 by 12 nations, entered into force in 1961 and was designed to preserve the continent for peaceful purposes, scientific collaboration, and a ban on military activity and territorial sovereignty claims. For China, a nation emerging from isolation after decades of inward policy and the Cultural Revolution, accession to the treaty offered a low-cost, high-impact entry point into a globally prestigious forum. Just 2 years later, in 1985, China was granted consultative party status after demonstrating substantial research activity through its independently built Great Wall Station. This status allowed China full voting rights in the annual Antarctic Treaty consultative meetings, meaning it could now directly influence decisions about the governance of Antarctica, a region that covers 14 million square kilometers, 98% of which is permanently covered by ice and estimated to hold up to 70% of the world's freshwater reserves. China's rapid integration into the Antarctic diplomatic architecture raised eyebrows among seasoned polar powers. Consultative status is not merely symbolic, it is the key to shaping the rules of engagement in Antarctica, including environmental protocols, tourism regulation, and scientific cooperation. For context, out of 56 Antarctic treaty members. Today, only 29 hold consultative status. China's ascent to this inner circle, faster than almost any other country in treaty history, allowed it to sit at the table with countries like the US, Russia, the UK, Australia, and Norway, which had decades-long Antarctic legacies and territorial interests dating back to the early 20th century. This raised alarm bells in the West. Was China genuinely committed to pure research, or was it using science as a cloak for more opaque ambitions? Antarctica's untapped mineral wealth, including rare earth elements, methane hydrates, iron ore, and possibly oil and gas, has long been theorized, although the 1991 Madrid Protocol bans all mineral resource activity except scientific research until at least 2048. Satellite observations, seismic mapping, and deep ice core drilling by multiple countries have hinted at large subsurface geological formations that could contain valuable resources. Chinese expeditions, particularly those launched from Zhongshan and Kunlun stations into East Antarctica, have focused extensively on geological surveys, subglacial lake studies, and magnetic anomaly mapping. While framed as scientific, these missions closely resemble preliminary resource assessments. In 2010, for instance, China's State Oceanic Administration began compiling extensive data on Antarctica's geology, crustal structures, and bedrock composition. Interestingly, China has been reluctant to share data as openly as its Western counterparts. A significant portion of Chinese Antarctic research is published only in Chinese or in domestic academic journals, limiting international scrutiny. For instance, seismic data from expeditions to Dome A, a site considered one of the best places on Earth for ice core climate records, has not been made fully public. Furthermore, Chinese teams have often refrained from inviting international scientists to cohabitate or collaborate long-term at their inland stations like Kunlun or Taishan, creating a perception of opacity. This lack of transparency has fueled speculation, particularly in strategic circles. In 2014, a report by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute warned that China's Antarctic activities were not simply about science, but should be understood as an effort to strengthen China's strategic posture. A subsequent 2018 study by the US-based Center for Strategic and International Studies echoed similar concerns, highlighting how China's polar logistics network, including 2 state-owned icebreakers, increasing use of military-grade aircraft, and construction of semi-permanent inland depots, mirrors infrastructure typically associated with long-term positioning rather than temporary science missions. In 2019, China's state media openly referred to Antarctica as humanity's shared wealth and emphasized China's right to participate in its sustainable use, language that analysts saw as a subtle hint at future resource interests post-2048. Interestingly, China's behavior contrasts sharply with Western Antarctic cultures of public engagement. While the US National Science Foundation maintains live webcams and public blogs from McMurdo Station, and the British Antarctic Survey offers virtual tours and real-time weather data from Rothera, China's stations maintain minimal public outreach. Great Wall Station has no open-access live feed. Kunlun Station's ice core progress updates are infrequent and filtered through state media. In 2021, an academic from China's Polar Research Institute stated in an internal symposium that data from Antarctica is a form of strategic capital and should not be casually disseminated. All of this raises critical questions. How will China shape Antarctica's future? With the 2048 Madrid Protocol review date drawing nearer, the decisions China makes in the next 2 decades may determine not only its own legacy in polar science, but the very fate of the last unowned landmass on Earth. Collaborative research and stealthy advancement. During the 1990s, as global attention to climate change, ozone depletion, and geophysical anomalies surged, China joined the international Antarctic research, but with a quiet, deliberate strategy. One of the most pivotal moves came through its scientific collaboration with Japan's National Institute of Polar Research, a partnership that granted Chinese researchers access to decades of Japanese polar expertise, infrastructure, and data archives. Japan, which had established its Siowa station in East Antarctica in 1957 and had decades of continuous observation behind it, represented one of the most seasoned players in Antarctic science. For China, still comparatively new on the continent, this collaboration was not just educational, but strategic. Through joint fieldwork, data exchange, and co-authored publications, Chinese scientists absorbed the operational know-how of advanced polar research, from instrument calibration in sub-zero temperatures to long-duration data collection in electromagnetic studies and marine ecosystems. This collaboration bore fruit in unexpected scientific areas, particularly in upper atmospheric and electromagnetic research. One fascinating topic of joint exploration was the study of atmospheric whistlers, which are low-frequency electromagnetic waves generated by lightning that can travel along Earth's magnetic field lines and interact with the ionosphere and magnetosphere. These phenomena, though naturally occurring, are crucial to understanding space weather events such as solar flares and geomagnetic storms, and their effect on satellite communications and global navigation systems. For a country like China, with ambitions in both Earth observation and satellite deployment, these studies held immense relevance. By the late 1990s, Chinese researchers were using very low-frequency receivers and magnetometers to monitor electromagnetic anomalies across Antarctica. Many analysts believe these electromagnetic studies laid the groundwork for China's later interest in magnetotellurics and subglacial radar. These technologies can peer through Antarctica's thick ice layers to map the bedrock and detect buried anomalies, including possible meteorite impact sites or sub-ice lakes. In addition to electromagnetic studies, Chinese scientists joined Japanese teams in geomagnetic research, measuring fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field and linking them to both solar activity and tectonic movements. Given Antarctica's relative isolation from anthropogenic interference and its proximity to the geomagnetic South Pole, the region offered pristine conditions for such studies. In 1994, Chinese researchers at Zhongshan Station began long-term magnetometer observations, contributing data to the Intermagnet Global Network. Over time, the collaboration evolved to include comparisons of magnetic anomalies between East Antarctica and geologically similar terrains in China's interior, particularly the Tarim Basin and the Tibetan Plateau. These studies not only offered clues about continental drift and Gondwana's ancient past, but also became relevant to China's satellite ground geolocation infrastructure and deep Earth prospecting capabilities. Perhaps less publicized but equally crucial were China's early ventures into polar biology and krill ecosystem research, again facilitated by Japanese collaboration. The Southern Ocean surrounding Antarctica is one of the planet's most productive marine ecosystems, teeming with krill, which are small, shrimp-like crustaceans that are a keystone species in the food web. Chinese researchers joined Japanese expeditions on icebreakers, like the Shirase and the Umitaka Maru, learning to operate echo sounders and deploy net sampling gear in extreme conditions. From 1995 to 1999, China initiated its own krill population studies in the Prids Bay region, gradually amassing data on biomass estimates, migratory patterns, and climate-induced variability. These initial biological surveys served dual purposes. Scientifically, they contributed to understanding the dynamics of Antarctic ecosystems under stress. Strategically, they positioned China to later argue for fishing rights in krill-rich waters under the Convention on the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, or CCANLR. By the turn of the millennium, China had begun transitioning from a knowledge-absorbing collaborator to a more independent actor with selective information-sharing practices. Much of its collaborative data from the 1990s was used internally to build robust research frameworks and field protocols. In the 2000s, China began deploying its own autonomous scientific instruments across vast stretches of East Antarctica and even started developing satellite-synchronized data transmission systems. These were often supported by its growing polar logistics capacity, including the icebreakers Xuelong or Snow Dragon and later Xuelong 2, as well as inland traverses conducted in collaboration with Chinese military-affiliated logistics experts. This growing autonomy allowed Chinese Antarctic science to evolve in two tracks. One, a public-facing scientific enterprise that engaged with global forums and journals, and the other, a more discreet, internally driven effort focused on strategic data collection and infrastructural dominance. By 2007, when China launched its inland Kunlun station near Dome A, the highest point on the Antarctic plateau, it had effectively graduated from student to competitor. Dome A, with its exceptionally stable atmospheric conditions, is not only a prime site for ice core drilling and paleoclimate research, but also for radio astronomy and space observation. It's also one of the most logistically challenging places to operate, with winter temperatures dropping below -80 degrees Celsius. Yet China's success in building and maintaining a semi-permanent presence there reflects the long arc of development that began in the 1990s through quiet, deliberate collaboration. The era of collaboration, while fruitful, was also the launchpad for a far more ambitious and autonomous phase in China's Antarctic ambitions, a 30,000-year climate revelation. In the year 2000, Chinese geochemist Sun Liguang published a groundbreaking paper in the journal Nature that would redefine how scientists understand long-term ecological and climate change in Antarctica. Titled "A 30,000-Year Record of Penguin Populations," the study departed dramatically from conventional paleoclimatology, which had traditionally relied on ice cores, sediment layers, or tree rings for environmental reconstructions. Instead, Sun's research focused on an altogether unexpected source: centuries-old layers of penguin guano. These thick deposits of excrement, accumulated and preserved under Antarctic conditions, turned out to be an untapped archive of environmental data, capturing millennia of biological responses to shifts in climate, sea ice extent, and food availability. What made Sun's approach revolutionary wasn't just the novelty of using guano, it was the precision with which his team analyzed the data using a technique known as typomorphic element combination analysis. This is a geochemical method that identifies patterns of elemental associations linked to specific biological processes. By excavating and chemically analyzing stratified guano mounds left behind by successive generations of Adelie and chinstrap penguins, Sun and his colleagues were able to reconstruct population trends stretching back over 30,000 years. The method relied on detecting and quantifying a suite of chemical markers, including phosphorus, a substance found in waste and connected to the activity of different levels in the food chain, copper, which is associated with krill consumption, fluorine, which can be traced to marine dietary inputs, and even trace elements like zinc and selenium. Because penguins are highly sensitive to climate fluctuations that affect their breeding grounds, ice access, and prey availability, their guano acts as a high-resolution biological proxy for paleo-environmental conditions. In some layers, higher concentrations of marine-derived elements pointed to warmer, more productive periods when sea ice retreated, while leaner chemical signatures were linked to cold spells. The findings from this study were astonishing. Sun Liguang's team identified clear boom and bust cycles in penguin populations that mirrored known climatic events such as the last glacial maximum, about 26,000 to 19,000 years ago, the Antarctic cold reversal, around 14,500 years ago, and the Holocene climatic optimum, roughly 9,000 to 5,000 years ago. During colder epochs, guano layers thinned dramatically or were absent altogether, suggesting large-scale migration or population collapse. Conversely, warmer phases led to explosive penguin growth, creating thick, chemically rich strata. Beyond ecological curiosity, The implications of Sun's study were geopolitically relevant as well, as nations began vying for influence in Antarctica during the early 2000s. Demonstrating advanced research capabilities became a form of soft power. China's ability to deploy innovative, low-cost, and field-efficient methods like guano stratigraphy showed that it could contribute novel insights to the international scientific community while also positioning itself as a leader in climate science. In the years that followed, Sun's work sparked a flurry of interest in the potential of non-traditional paleo-environmental proxies. Several follow-up expeditions led by Chinese teams focused on guano sites in areas like Ardley Island and the Antarctic Peninsula, where penguin colonies had persisted for thousands of years. These expeditions were often supported by the Chinese National Antarctic Research Expedition, or CNARE, which by the mid-2000s had grown into one of the most active polar programs in the world, launching nearly annual missions and expanding inland scientific outposts, such as Kunlun Station. The guano-based methodology was eventually refined to include stable isotope analysis and DNA extraction, allowing scientists to determine not only the abundance of penguins, but also their diet composition and even pathogen loads through time. By the late 2010s, Sun's original findings had been cited in over 150 peer-reviewed publications and incorporated into broader climate models that tracked biological feedback mechanisms in the Southern Ocean. Moreover, this line of research contributed to emerging discussions about ecological baselines in conservation policy, underlining the need to distinguish between naturally occurring population fluctuations and those driven by human activities, such as industrial fishing or global warming. Today, Sun Liguang serves as a professor at the Institute of Earth Environment under the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and his work continues to influence both polar science and environmental policy. His pioneering use of penguin guano as a proxy record has also led to cross-disciplinary collaborations, including with archaeologists studying ancient human-penguin interactions on sub-Antarctic islands and astrobiologists investigating microbial survival in extreme habitats. In a 2020 interview, Sun remarked, "What began as curiosity about droppings turned into a mirror of climate itself. Every penguin colony is a living archive, and every layer of guano tells a story of Earth's changing breath." So, what did the Chinese discover? Sun Liguang and his team at the Chinese Academy of Sciences demonstrated that fluctuations in penguin numbers were closely tied to changes in temperature and sea ice. Warmer periods, marked by increased krill populations, led to surges in penguin numbers, while colder periods or disruptions to sea ice caused sharp declines. The guano layers, rich in chemical markers like phosphorus, calcium, fluorine, and marine-derived copper, act as a precise indicator of these shifts. This data revealed that during the Holocene climatic optimum, which was between 9,000 and 5,000 years ago, penguin populations gradually increased in response to a warmer climate. However, in recent decades, anthropogenic climate change has caused a much more rapid decline in penguin numbers, with chinstrap penguin populations dropping by as much as 50% in just 20 years, much faster than any natural fluctuation in the past. The research highlighted a troubling trend. The rapid warming caused by human activities is outpacing the slower, natural temperature changes observed in the past. The decline in krill populations, whose reproduction is heavily dependent on sea ice, has had a direct impact on penguin colonies, as species like Adelie and chinstrap penguins rely almost entirely on krill for breeding. The 2016 Chinese National Antarctic Research Expedition showed a shocking 40% decline in krill biomass in the Weddell Sea compared to the 1970s, exacerbating the challenges penguins face. The research, which provided hard biochemical evidence for these shifts, emphasized the vulnerability of Antarctic ecosystems to rapid environmental change. In contrast to past natural fluctuations, today's speed of warming, as noted by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, could have catastrophic consequences for penguins and other species. China's findings were rapidly embraced by the global scientific community, with the United Nations Environment Programme and the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research recommending broader applications of biological proxies like penguin guano. Politically, China's advancements in Antarctic research marked a shift in its role in global governance, elevating its scientific authority and expanding its influence in polar research and conservation efforts. The research continues to play a crucial role in informing modern climate models and conservation policies, such as the establishment of the Ross Sea Marine Protected Area, helping to protect vital ecosystems based on long-term ecological data. But wait, there's more. A hidden world. Beneath the ice, beneath East Antarctica's vast ice sheet, lies the Gamburtsev subglacial mountains, an ancient and largely unexplored mountain range that has become a focal point of scientific discovery. First hypothesized in the 1950s, it wasn't until the early 2000s that modern geophysical techniques, including advanced radar and seismic tomography, revealed the range's full extent. China played a pivotal role in mapping this region through its ambitious Antarctic expeditions, using deep ice radar and aerial surveys to uncover mountains that stretch over 1,200 kilometers, with some peaks rising above 3,000 meters. The mountains are not only geologically significant, but provide a rare window into the Earth's Precambrian past, revealing tectonic processes dating back over 1 billion years. The Gamburtsev Mountains' geological history is marked by both ancient formation and subsequent tectonic rejuvenation. These mountains, once part of the supercontinent Rodinia, were later reshaped during the Permian period, challenging earlier assumptions about East Antarctica's geologic stability. The region's complex crust, including rift valleys and fault lines, offers valuable insights into continental formation and crustal evolution, making the Gamburtsev Mountains a key area for studying Earth's tectonic history. Chinese scientific missions, particularly from Kunlun Station, have provided groundbreaking data, including 3D reconstructions of the subglacial terrain that have revealed evidence of temperate ecosystems and active river systems before glaciation. Today, the Gamburtsev Mountains are of critical importance in the context of climate change. As one of the largest repositories of ice on Earth, Antarctica's east ice sheet is particularly vulnerable to destabilization, with the Gamburtsev region's rugged topography playing a key role in the dynamics of ice flow. Research suggests that the region's steep ridges and fault lines may accelerate the melting of overlying ice, potentially leading to rapid ice sheet collapse and significant sea level rise. As climate models evolve, understanding the role of subglacial terrain like the Gamburtsevs has become essential in predicting future climate scenarios, underscoring the mountain's growing relevance in global climate science and policy. That being said, China is not alone in its fascination with Antarctica. Joe Rogan's fascination with Antarctica. Joe Rogan's recurring discussions on Antarctica highlight its role as a nexus where extreme human endurance, ancient enigmas, and modern scientific endeavors converge. For instance, on February 20th, 2020, Rogan hosted Colin O'Brady, the first person to complete a solo, unsupported, and unaided crossing of Antarctica. O'Brady's 54-day journey covered approximately 932 miles, during which he hauled a 375-pound sled across the icy expanse. Rogan delved into the psychological and physical challenges O'Brady faced, including the profound isolation and the eerie silence of Antarctica. In another episode, Rogan conversed with Andy Stumpf, a former Navy SEAL, about the formidable conditions of Antarctica. Stumpf highlighted the continent's brutal logistics, the presence of ozone holes, and the treacherous terrain. Rogan remarked, "It's like the Earth doesn't want us there," emphasizing the inhospitable nature of the environment. Rogan also engaged with Graham Hancock and Flint Dibble in a discussion that ventured into the realm of ancient cartography and lost civilizations. Hancock introduced the Peary Race Map, a 16th century chart that some claim depicts an ice-free Antarctic coastline, suggesting the possibility of ancient knowledge of the continent. While Rogan approached the topic with skepticism, he entertained the idea, pondering whether ancient civilizations could have had awareness of Antarctica before it became ice-covered. This conversation mirrors scientific findings, such as China's discovery of subglacial valleys, which hint at a once ice-free and potentially habitable past for the continent. Rogan also sat with Sam Tripoli and delved into the details of Operation High Jump, a 1946 US Navy mission involving 5,000 troops and numerous ships. Tripoli posited that the operation was more than a military exercise, suggesting the existence of Nazi bases and UFOs in Antarctica. Rogan's platform brings these discussions to a wide audience, fostering curiosity and dialogue about one of Earth's most enigmatic continents. Antarctica's extreme environment serves as both a physical and metaphorical frontier, challenging explorers and scientists alike to push the boundaries of human knowledge and resilience. The Chinese are clearly leading the way, and they know much more than what they have shared with the rest of us. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.